Hello, everyone. Today is July 14th, Tuesday, and the time is 5:30, and we are here for the regular City Council meeting for the City of Coppell. There is a quorum present. We have virtual and in-person attendance. We call the meeting to order, and we will be moving to executive session and should be back shortly. Thank you.
Hi, Jerry. This is the host. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. Thank you. Just want to do a sound check.
Did Bijou drop? Yes, she just said as she walked out.
Here he is.
No, he's back. Too late. Can't get her attention. It was fun Crystal said today that she had people getting mad because the Republicans wanted to come down and vote. There's no Republicans to vote for. Well, I'm just angry. So we said we're just going to set up a box.
It's a Democratic runoff. Yeah, we'll put it in a box.
Oh, yeah.
We'll let him man it.
Yeah, there you go. Deisha's here.
Yep. Well, we'll.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, so the time is 5:53, and let's move into work session. Are there any items on the work session that anybody has an interest in having initial discussion, comments, questions? Council member?
Thank you, Mayor. I had a couple of brief questions on the, let's see, on 8B. They talked about, this is the parking on Ruby Road. They said several residents said that they would like, is several 3 or is it 20 or what's the, I mean, what, how many people can do something like this?
Well, we get more than one. Is Kent on the line? Or there he
I
is.
am.
Okay.
I don't have the number of requests. I know we've gotten requests from a number of residents over time. The issue, though, is the visibility issue.
Right.
So if it was just a request for no parking by a couple of residents, if we didn't think it was justified based on the traffic conditions, we would not be bringing it forward.
I assume that was the case. So we, the city, has determined that truly there is an unsafe condition there. And since I jog by there almost daily, I understand the problem because they, first it was a car or two, and then it was 4 or 5, and now they line that curb so that you really can't see coming out of those 2 private exits and entrances.
Yes, sir. It was brought to our attention by the residents, but we investigated before we brought it forward.
And C, what year are we talking about? The document that we had in there expired on 7/31 of 19, and then we talk about this one. So we're currently in, I guess, the one that we're going to apply the money to is 7/31/20. It's about to come to an end.
Kent.
Can I get back to you on that? I apologize.
I think that's probably the way it is, but you talk about years, but there's no indication as to what the years are. So just, for my own sake, I'd like to know, is this 35 going to be in the new contract going into 21 that would end in
No,
July
I'm sorry. I've caught up with you. No, this will carry us through the end of the fiscal year, the current fiscal year.
the current fiscal year? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay.
Mark, did I see you have a question?
Yes, you did. Back to the question about the parking on Ruby. Are we enforcing any stricter standards for visibility triangles than we would on public streets and parking perpendicular to the road entering another road?
Well, in this case, what we're doing is just evaluating the conditions that are occurring at this location. So we're trying to create a visibility corridor that doesn't exist today. So that's what we're trying to do. We initially, there is a statute that allows us to prevent parking within 20 feet of a stop sign. We were trying to do that. It didn't get the visibility that we needed. So that's the justification or the reason for the no parking in this case.
So, how is the visibility different from an intersection where you've got no parking within 20 feet? What's the encumbering factor here?
I'm not sure I'm following the question.
Well, do we need to go through and change all the parking requirements at intersections to make them more than 20 feet from the stop sign?
No, I understand what you're saying. Usually the visibility triangle is along the major street. In this case, we're not, we need more space to create visibility along this street.
I'm going to need a better explanation than that. I mean, I just
Mark,
don't understand
can
how
I try?
it's different from...
Hold on. Yeah, let me try. So if I understood your question, in general, for the site triangles, what we have in place works fine when you ask the question. In this particular instance, when it comes to Ruby, and I think this is to the point that Cliff was saying, because Cliff's down there all the time, and what Kent is saying is, in this particular instance, the site triangle is not sufficient from creating a safety situation along Ruby. Therefore, the extension of the no parking zone is required to create the better visibility. So it isn't a question of every intersection in town. It's this particular situation.
Is it the fact that it's just a very narrow street entering Ruby that's causing the geometry issues not to work out for the visibility triangle?
I believe that is the case. Yes, sir.
Okay, because it's probably not a 24-foot drive or 32 or whatever we typically have for our streets. It's much more narrow.
Oh.
Okay.
Gary, did you have something?
Yeah, I guess, Mark, what you're asking is why 100 feet?
Yes.
And is that, because that's Ruby's pretty wide right there. My assumption there was the 100 feet is because it's between two drives, not at just an intersection. So you got 40 feet even if you just went 20 between, right? Is
yes,
that right?
Yes, sir. That's correct. And we're really just trying to create that visibility along all of our view corridors at that intersection.
And so I guess my question, Kent, are these vehicles from the Container Store across the street? Is that where they're being parked from?
Yes, sir.
And so I think the Container Store has been a really good corporate citizen. If we make this a no parking zone, are we going to create a situation where they don't have enough parking, and have we talked to them about it?
I don't believe we have talked to them about it, but I think they've got parking and can adhere to this requirement.
So I would just suggest that we have that discussion before we put up no parking signs and have them be in a bind.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other items where there's a question? Mr. Mays?
I wanted to continue on. I got confused. I was looking it up on a map. I thought that this was at Ruby and North Coppell. Is it over on Freeport? Kent?
Yep, I think
Maybe on mute.
He is on mute.
It's the north side of Ruby, right there. It's Oak Park Village. Let mobile home park. Yeah, I don't have the map in front of me.
We're talking about between the mobile home park and Container Store.
Okay.
Yes.
I was thinking it was on the east side of Ruby, so my mind was on the other end of the street. Okay. I think I understand the issue down there. Thank you.
Okay. Any other agenda items? Hearing none. Let's move to item B. Today we have a presentation from Kelly Balch regarding the Texas Power Switch auction results. And I believe Kelly is here remotely. There he is. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. My name is actually JP Harper.
Oh.
Kelly Balch is on the line with me.
Okay.
Kelly is our marketing coordinator, but again, my name is JP Harper. There you go. Now I think my name's labeled correctly. Do you want me to jump right into the presentation?
Please do.
Okay. All right. I believe so. You guys are showing the presentation from a computer there. So if we could flip to the next slide, I'll jump right in here. So again, my name is JP Harper, and I am the Vice President of iChooser in North America. And also on the line is Kelly Balch, and Kelly is our communication manager. We can flip to the next slide. So I wanted to talk a little bit today. I think I've got about 15 minutes or so. I'm going to try to be brief and be respectful. But please, as I go through the presentation, feel free to stop me and ask any questions. But the plan over the next 15 to 20 minutes will be to talk a little bit about why cities here in Texas are offering what we call group switching services to their residents. This is to the residents living in your cities. We'll talk a little bit about the Texas Power Switch program, how the program benefits both the city as well as how it benefits the residents. And then we'll wrap up with a 3.5 minutes, not even 3.5 minutes. It's a city council presentation done about 1.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, from the City of Farmers Branch, which of course is a city that's pretty close to you all. You can move to the next switch. Next slide. Sorry. So real quickly about iChooser. iChooser is the name of the company that runs the Texas Power Switch. So I'll be referring over the next 15, 20 minutes, I'll be referring a lot to Texas Power Switch. That is the name of the program that we run, and it is a trademarked and copyrighted program. I do want to mention that we are the only company like ours in the state of Texas that's registered with the Public Utility Commission of Texas. We are not by any means a fly-by-night company. We've been around for 12 years. We were started back in 2008. You can see some of the bullet points here that we're active in 5 countries, of course, including the United States. What we focus on here in the U.S. and specifically here in Texas is helping residents to, number one, become educated about their right to change electricity providers and actually help them to change their electricity provider, which helps them save significant money in many cases. You can see here that over the last 12 years, we've helped over 6 million households, and that is a global number, but we've helped over 6 million households participate in our various programs, and it's resulted in almost $1 billion in savings. We started here in Texas 3.5 years ago, and here in Texas we have had over 30,000 households that have participated in our programs through city sponsorship. And specifically here in Texas, we've helped Texans save roughly about $4 million in their electricity costs. We do have our 10th Texas Power Switch auction coming up in September, and I'll talk a little bit about what that auction is and how it works and so on. It's pretty simple. I myself, I live here in Texas. I live in Austin, and Kelly also lives in Austin. This is where our North American headquarters are, Austin, Texas, and then we've got a customer care team and call center that's based in Houston. So we do call Texas home, but that's just kind of the quick high-level overview on iChooser. We can move to the next slide. So real quickly, the issue that we have found is that roughly 85% of the people living in Texas have a choice with our electricity providers, right? So this goes back to 2001 when the state of Texas deregulated the electricity market. So while 85% of Texans have a choice in their electricity providers, roughly 70% have not changed their electricity provider in the last 3 years. Most of the time, that means people are paying too much for their electricity. In some cases, it's significantly too much. In some cases, we found people paying 2 to 2.5 times as much as what the going rate is for electricity. So that is the problem, is that there's a lot of people, quote unquote, asleep at the wheel, that really just don't bother looking at their electricity prices that they're paying, and they're significantly overpaying on their electric bill. We can move to the next slide, please. Oftentimes it's because, even when you do get notified of a rate increase, it'll be a penny or a penny and a half. And you think, well, gosh, it doesn't look like it's that much. Or even if you do the math and you say, well, it's a penny for every kilowatt hour, or 2 pennies for every kilowatt hour, you think, gosh, 1 cent or 2 cents. And you look and you say, well, gosh, it's $25 or $30 more a month that I'm going to be paying than what I was paying, because the average household consumption is about 1,500 kilowatt hours per month. Of course, it's more in the summertime, but people don't change because they find it's confusing, right? There's a lot of confusing messages that are out there. There's over 100 different retail electric providers that are in the market today. A lot of the offers that are out there are misleading, and it's time consuming to do all the research. And people just say, you know what? They throw their hands in the air and they say, I don't have time to change. Next thing you know, people are overpaying by $30 or $40 a month on their bills. So when you do the math, that's oftentimes $480 to $500 annually. So we can flip to the next slide. So the solution, really the program that we came up with specifically here in Texas is, again, branded as the Texas Power Switch. And our goal is really to, number one, educate residents, right? First and foremost, we want to educate residents about what their right is to change electricity providers. So we provide that education around energy choice. And then we also offer, we offer them the ability to reduce the cost of their electricity. iChooser and Texas Power Switch, we do not sell electricity, right? We're an independent firm, and we work with cities and we work with residents to provide a service where we run a reverse auction to provide the best cost or the best price on electricity to residents, right? From a city standpoint, many of the cities that we work with see this as a great opportunity to engage with their community and really offer another service to the community that helps residents, helps them save money. And oftentimes that money stays in the local economy, right? So when people are saving $30, $40, $50 a month, that is money that they can spend, whether they're grocery shopping or whether they're getting their dry cleaning done, whatever it is. Again, oftentimes those savings stay in the local economy. The last thing I want to mention is that there is absolutely no cost and no risk to the city to provide the program. There's no cost and there's no risk to residents. I'm going to talk a little bit specifically why there's no cost and why there's no risk to the city or the residents. We're an open book here. We have no problem talking about how we actually do make money, and I'll get to that on a slide that's coming up here. So we can flip to the next slide. So real quickly, I want to mention 10 seconds or less here. When the state of Texas deregulated the power market here, included in Texas Senate Bill number 7 when it got passed in 1999, which was 21 years ago, it was actually requested by cities that the following language was included, right? That a political subdivision, an aggregator, may negotiate for the purchase of electricity and energy services on behalf of the citizens of that political subdivision, meaning a county or a city, a local government entity, right? So that language is actually in SB 7 when that got passed, which was the Senate bill that deregulated the power market. So I wanted to point that out. Can move to the next slide, please. So these are the results. So as we look at the last 6 auctions that we do, so we call it TPS 4, TPS 5, TPS 6. It stands for Texas Power Switch 4, Texas Power Switch number 5, number 6. You'll see on the blue line on the bottom, that is the winning rate that we have procured for residents. Up top, that is the average price that if an individual went out to the market, and if you look to change your electricity provider, and you said, well, gosh, what is the rate that I would pay if I trade the change? This is an average of the big 5, the big 5 being TXU. So TXU, for those of you that have lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for a while, of course, TXU was the large independent, the investor-owned utility up there that prior to deregulation, that was the utility that was providing everybody service. They owned the generation, they owned the transmission, and of course they provided the electricity to consumers. Now TXU is just a retail electric provider, as is Reliant Energy or NRG, some of the other ones. So the biggest 5 in the state of Texas, if you averaged up the price of their electricity on the day that we ran auctions, it would be that orange graph on the top. So we consistently are 25 to 30% less than what somebody could get on their own. So if you look at the blurb there on the left side of your screen, you can see that for an average household, and this is an average across 12 months. Again, we all know in the summertime, people are generally using a lot more electricity because of air conditioning running. But on average, if you used 1,500 kilowatt hours per month over the course of a year, somebody would expect to save about $496. Now that's an average. We've actually had people that have participated in our program and saved well over $1,000. I think the highest that I've seen is we've actually had some people that have saved over $2,000, which is pretty amazing to me. But on average, it's roughly $496, close to $500 annually. If we go to the next slide. So how does the program work, right? So we generally work with 3 groups of people. On the top there, you'll see the residents. Those are the consumers of electricity. In the middle, we see community leaders, right? And that is you all here on the line today on the Zoom session. This is where we work with city leaders and city council members. So really, all we look for is we look for approval to work with the city, and we look to have the city endorse the program. And how we actually make money is with the electric providers on the bottom. So again, as I mentioned earlier, the program is completely free to residents and it's completely free to cities. There's no cost, and we also don't collect any confidential information. So there's never any concern from our standpoint about confidential information being leaked. We don't collect credit card information or date of birth or any of that kind of stuff. So again, this is a service that cities are starting to offer more and more to the residents as a free service, and it's a way to engage your residents and provide a way to help them save money on their electric bills. So those are the 3 groups that we work with: the consumers, the community leaders, which are yourselves, and then of course the retail electric providers, many of which are in Houston. There are a few, of course, that are up in the Dallas area and some other areas of Texas here. Let's move to the next slide, please. So it's a pretty easy program, and that is the goal, right? The goal is if we don't make it easy, people won't switch. So number 1, we educate people. That's first and foremost. Our job is to educate residents about what their rights are, and then we offer them the opportunity to register for the Texas Power Switch. There is absolutely no commitment. And again, we don't ask them to pay for anything. The city doesn't pay us. It's free to register. So once we educate people and we register, residents for the program. What we do is we aggregate up. Oftentimes we'll have 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 people that have registered for the program. We then go out to those retail electric providers and we say, hey, guess what? We have 7,000 people or 8,000 people that have registered. We run what is called a reverse auction. So in a traditional auction, if I have a piece of artwork or a piece of or a car or something else, it's the highest bidder that wins. In a reverse auction, it's the lowest bidder that wins. So we ask the retail electric providers to actually bid on this group of people that we have, the group of residents that we have, and the lowest price wins. Then what we do is step 3 is everybody that's registered for the program gets the same offer. Everybody's offered the same exact price. And it's at that point, step 4, that residents get to decide. There's absolutely no commitment. So if you didn't like the price that came in the reverse auction, or you said, oh gosh, this was the name of the company that won, I don't like that company, you don't have to switch. There's no obligation to switch. If at that point somebody does decide, hey, this is a pretty good rate, it's I'm going to be able to save 3 or 4 cents a kilowatt hour or 5 cents a kilowatt hour, then the residents can decide at that point that they want to switch. And step 5, we actually take care of it. We facilitate the process. So our goal here is to make it very easy and simple for residents to change their electricity providers and save a significant amount of money. Let's go to the next slide, please. I am keeping my eye on the clock here. These are some of the cities that we work with today. We just grabbed a number of the logos just to give you all an idea of some of the cities. Of course, Farmers Branch is right there in the top middle. I know Farmers Branch is relatively close to you in terms of geography, but Lake Dallas, City of Fate, we actually have a quote from the city manager, Michael Kovacs from the city of Fate. He's a big proponent of the program, but Copper's Cove joined on with us a year ago, Corinth, and so on. City of Waco works with us. So we are certainly seeing more and more interest from a number of cities to offer this program, especially now. I'll tell you, really, over the last 2 months, we've had a lot of interest from cities. We fully recognize that the health and the humanity crisis that we're all dealing with related to COVID. But of course, on the back end of that, we've got the economic fallout. So while the health and human crisis is certainly first and foremost for many city leaders, of course, there's how do we find a way to help our small businesses? How do we help our residents deal with the economic fallout, the job loss, the unemployment numbers, the layoffs, and so on? So again, this is a great program that can help put money back in people's pockets or help them save money on their electric bills. If we can move on to the next slide. So real quickly, what this means for the city of Coppell, right? With the approval of city council, iChoose would work with your city to help your residents save money on their electric bills. We would start on that immediately. So our next auction, as I mentioned, is coming up in September. And what we would do is we would reach out directly to communicate the benefits of the program to the residents of the city of Coppell through various marketing channels. And that's really where Kelly comes in. Kelly drives all the marketing. There's absolutely, and I want to make sure I emphasize this, there's no burden on any city employees. Generally, what we look for, it's about 2 hours worth of work every 3 months. And yes, I said 2 hours worth of work every 3 months. So really, there is no burden on any of the city employees. Again, there's absolutely no cost to the city. The city does not pay us 1 penny, nor to any of the residents. The residents don't pay us anything, right? And the program does get designed. We customize it specifically to help your residents save money. So that's kind of the summary here for the city of Coppell. Can move forward to the next slide, please. The bottom line is that the program really is not successful without city support, right? So as we do direct mail or if we send emails, people have not heard of iChoose or they haven't heard of Texas Power Switch. I myself would be skeptical. If I got something in an email, I would probably just delete it. Or if I got something in the mail, it just gets deleted. So it's really because of the city support that we have with some of the cities that I showed you the logos on 2 slides ago. That is really where the success comes in. It's because of the support that we get from the partners that we have, the city partners that we have. That is why residents will trust the program and they recognize that this is not a scam, right? Having the city support again is important because residents count on the city to vet iChooser, vet the program, and it gives residents the confidence to sign up for the program and to register, right? And at the end of the day, we did some quick math based on the population in the city of Coppell, and with average savings somewhere between $450 to $550 a year, it equates to about roughly $4.5 million that could stay in your local economy, right? 4.8 million was based on the math that we did. If we assume 70% of your residents are paying too much, we can move on to the next slide. I would ask the host if you could just show this 3-minute video, and this is really the second to last slide, but again, this is a 3-minute video. If we could watch the video, I think the council members would find it very informative to hear from folks that aren't me.
Working for your city, you want to create policy which is actionable, beneficial for your residents, easy to participate in, hassle and risk-free for you. Our program, the Texas Power Switch, gives you the opportunity to bring down your residents' electricity bill. No costs, no hassle. Not for you and not for your residents. Does this sound too good to be true? Only 7 months ago, we challenged Farmers Branch Council to join our program. Ben Williamson seized this opportunity, and together we managed to save the community over $150,000. Let's hear from them how they achieved this.
One thing we did differently with this program that was really neat, we could turn the keys to this program over to the Power Switch program, iChooser, and they would do a great job. We have kept that interaction with our residents in-house, and so when we say over 50 one-on-one meetings, over 100 phone calls, those are my interactions with the residents that have questions about this. We don't just redirect to the call center or to iChooser. We keep those interactions here at City Hall, and it's been amazing to have those interactions with our residents. Of all the programs that I've been involved with Farmers Branch or my other cities I've worked for, this one has been the most well-received of any program. The residents absolutely love this program.
One of the things that I think Ben mentioned was branding it the Farmers Branch Power Switch, and I know that helped me as well as some other folks that I spoke with after I found out about it that were concerned about fraud, that type of thing. So I want to applaud that effort as well as the website. I don't know if that was done by iChooser or who did the website, but I thought it was really well done, easy to use, etc. So it made the process very smooth and was well communicated. I want to say about the savings. I am saving money over. I'm not saving over what I was paying prior, but TXU is about to raise my rate, so I'm saving over what that new rate would have been, and the savings are probably about close to that $450 to $500 per year.
I'm on the Power Switch website all the time shopping rate, and I was a little skeptical about it being competitive. I went and I got my rate, and like you said, it went up. And then the auction rate that came in was better than what I could do, and I was really pleased with that. It was simple to do. It took me not even 5 minutes. I got my letter. I'm just waiting for the switch in December, and it's a great deal. So thank you for supporting it.
The savings are absolutely tremendous. I mean, I think I broke it down once that when you consider $500 and you take a home value of $250 here in Farmers Branch with our current tax rate, your city portion of the tax is about $1,500, which means we're saving you about 33%, off that bill by choosing this, which is hopefully making it a little bit easier to live here in this community. And so without this program, we wouldn't be able to offer that to people. And just grateful for your efforts, and thank you.
Do you want to know what we can do for your city? Feel free to contact us on www.ichooser.us/contact. Texas Power Switch, the easiest way to save on your electricity bill.
Great, thank you. We could flip back to the slide deck. These are the upcoming dates that we have. Our next auction is September 15th. We are hoping that we've got a few more cities that will be signing on to the program, and certainly we hope that City of Coppell is able I don't know if you plan on voting this evening or if that's possible, but would love to have the city of Coppell join us, and we'd be able to offer this program to your residents on September. Well, we would be marketing the program through the month of August, which is when we market the program to residents in the cities that sign up. And again, the auction is coming up on September 15th, and we start allowing people to switch at the very end of September. So these are the upcoming dates that we've got. And I think that's the last slide. We could flip to the next one. Yeah, thank you all for your time. And hopefully I didn't take too much time. Let me stop there and see if there's any questions about the program.
Thank you very much, JP. Questions, council members? For those of you who are virtual, just try not to talk over each other, but there you go. Anybody have a question? Bijou?
Thank you, Mayor. JP, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Thank you, council member.
Some of the areas in Coppell is served by CoServe. Do you work with CoServe?
Is CoServe, is that an electric cooperative?
Yes.
Yeah. If for cities that are both have deregulated areas as well as regulated areas, unfortunately, when the state of Texas deregulated, if you live in either a municipal utility territory, like I do actually, ironically, I can't switch. I live in Austin, and I'm served by Austin Energy. I can't switch. But also to answer your question, council member, if for those people that live inside of an electric cooperative, they are not permitted to switch, and that's by state law. There's nothing that we can do about that. But I do believe that most residents in the city of Coppell are able to switch. That's my understanding.
Thank you. One more question. You said the city doesn't pay and the resident doesn't pay. How do you get paid?
For every person that signs up for the program, now again, it's completely free to sign up. Once people sign up and we run the auction, for people that choose to accept the offer, once they know who the winner is and once they know what the price is, once they switch, we actually get paid by the retail, by whatever retail electric provider is that wins the auction. For every resident that switches, we get paid by the retail electric provider. So that's why there's no cost to the city and there's no cost to the resident, because the retail electric providers, they are the ones who pay us. And I'll tell you, every single retail electric provider that we work with pays us the same amount of money. So when I say they pay us the same amount of money, only the winner pays us, to be clear. Only the winner pays us, but we do not have any preferential treatment to any one retail electric provider or another. We are completely agnostic with regard to which retail electric provider wins, because we get paid the same rate from whichever retail electric provider wins the auction. And it's all based on the number of people that switch.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
Mark?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Mark?
Yes, I just have a couple questions. So you really need the city of Coppell's good name to facilitate this program.
Yes,
That's
sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
And if things go south with your company, then we're drugged down with you?
No, not at all. Not at all. I have actually sent over a copy of the contract that we utilize. So first of all, we're a pretty large company. As I showed on the previous slide, we have saved residents over the last 12 years. Now this is globally. We've saved people over $840 million. But no, actually, what happens, council member, is once we switch, once people change their electricity provider. Again, we are not an electricity provider. We're not a retail electric provider. So what we do is we facilitate the process of changing people from one retail electric provider to another retail electric provider. So again, there's absolutely no risk to the city. So even if we were to go out of business, there's no there's no money. There's no. It's not like we're implementing any kind of software for the city or for residents or anything like that. It's strictly a switching process that we facilitate from one retail electric provider to another.
But if we have some type of situation where the customer service is terrible from that company, then people are going to look at the city of Coppell and say, oh, how'd you get us into this? I'd like to know the other members' opinion of facilitating Texas Power Switch, a private business, to make money off the use of our good name. I've got definite feelings about that. My next question is, what happens when the next company comes in and wants to do the same thing? Do you have an exclusivity agreement that you want? Are we going to have people lined up out the door, wanting to get our name behind a program like this to switch?
Well, I don't know that you'll have people lined up out the door. To my knowledge, we're the only firm that runs the model that we do. Again, we are certainly the only one that's registered with the Public Utility Commission of Texas. So we are registered. We've got our number that we can provide. To address your first question around customer service, we do vet all of the participating retail electric providers, and I will tell you that we have excluded a number of retail electric providers when they get written up by the Public Utility Commission and there's complaints. At the Public Utility Commission of Texas, the PUCT, they actually have scoring of the various retail electric providers, and we look at the scores, and we have a pretty high threshold for the service level that we expect, because we recognize that what we iChooser are asking for is we're asking for the endorsement from cities, and we recognize that there's value in the city's reputation, which is exactly why we ask for your support. But we recognize that it's a very sensitive topic, and I will tell you that this question comes up at every single city council presentation that we've done over the last 3.5 years. Rightly so, right? But again, that's why it's extremely important for us to have very high service level agreements in place with the participating retail electric providers. On top of the retail electric providers having customer service, their own customer service and service level agreements established with us, we separately have our own call center as a backup. And I'll tell you, it's very rare. And I'm not going to say, I'll be completely honest. It's not, I'm not going to say that there's never been a residential complaint to the city, but it is extremely rare. And just about every one of our cities is referenceable. So, if you wanted anybody on city staff to follow up with Farmers Branch or City of Fate or City of Waco, or really any of those cities that I showed, we'd be happy to share contact information. But we take that very seriously because it's like I said, that's probably the biggest concern that we hear most often is concern around the reputation of the city and support.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that you vet your companies and you do exclude some. That's very encouraging. So thank you. I appreciate you answering my questions.
You're welcome.
Nancy, then Gary.
Thank you, Mayor. I have similar concerns that Councilmember Hill has. Has anybody on? I heard you say in your presentation that the city has vetted and it's not a scam. Has anybody on our staff vetted anything other than seeing this presentation that we've seen tonight, Mike?
Yeah, I've had multiple conversations with the City of Fate and with Charles Cox, the city manager in Farmers Branch, and I was asked about this a little bit earlier. Remember, they are the only company that's registered with the PUC. Mm-hmm. So the City of Fate speaks extremely highly. I can tell you the City of Farmers Branch speaks very highly.
Obviously, by that video.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, we have time. Y'all aren't voting on this tonight.
Right.
Right. So if it's something that you are interested in us doing a little bit more research and pursuing, all I'd ask is that, we come back to you on the 28th with additional information if that's something that you're interested in, or you can tell us we're really not interested in it. Thank you very much. And we'll move on down the road. So, but the cities, those two cities in particular, and I want to say I've talked to Bob Hart in Corinth, but everything's kind of scrambled eggs right now. So, but I believe that they were okay as well. But I know those two cities in particular, and if y'all know Fate's a high-end community. So Michael speaks very highly, and he says they have no issues that they don't receive phone calls because the city has nothing to do with it. I'm saying once the power gets switched, it's just like today. I don't know who your power, but you don't call the city because of whoever's providing you power, right? It's the same way with this. Just because the city's was part of the facilitation of the aggregation, it doesn't put us in a position of being the power company.
Right. So in my family, we do watch the rates, and we do. It's actually my husband's job, not mine. That's on his plate. And so every 2 years, I believe, when our contract is up. And by the way, how long are the citizens committed to their rate? JP?
It's a standard it's either a 12-month. We actually run two separate auctions. One is for a 12-month contract. We get a price for that, and we get another one for a 24-month contract. The other thing I'll say about the contracts that are offered by the providers, it's very simple. It's the same rate, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. There's no free nights and weekends, and then tired during the day, and so that way people are like, well, whoa, I didn't realize I shouldn't. I shouldn't run my dishwasher and appliances during the day. The goal here is to have a very simple program. So, but it is a 12-month contract and a 24-month contract, and then we allow the residents to choose which one they prefer, whether it's 12 or 24 months.
And I think that having the endorsement of the city council, and when the city has no control, that's a little bit, I think, unnerving for some people that may sit on the council, or at least for me, not really like when you want the endorsement. It's how long does that endorsement? Again, things can go south. You don't know. So when we put our name on it as elected officials, we're kind of, when there are disputes, we know things have come back to us in other situations. So it's a little bit of it's a new concept. So I think people would like to see what does that contract look like. Definitely would want some more information before moving forward.
Yeah.
So
I think we've sent the contract over. The other thing I would say is it is cancelable at any time. So if you wanted to participate, if you want to sign on to the contract, again, we've already provided. At least I think we provided, and Kelly can verify that. I think that we provided a copy of the contract, but it is completely cancelable by the city. So if you participated in one auction and you said, gosh, we don't want to do that again, all you have to do is send us a notification that you want out. And again, there's no financial ties or anything like that. We don't invoice the city. City doesn't pay us anything.
It's more of I think it's not worried about the money or financial commitment. It's the endorsement of the city. I don't think anybody, we know that there's no financial commitment. It's more of the endorsement of the city.
Sure. Right.
Thank you.
Right. And like I said, this is something that comes up with every single city council meeting that we've gone to. For the most part, I'll tell you, and we have not been successful at every single city council meeting we've gone to. We have had a couple of city councils that have said no to it. I would say roughly 75 to 80% when we get an opportunity to present to the council, most council members vote yes on it. But again, we fully respect whatever the decision is that the council makes, and we understand that the reputation of the city is it's valuable, and of course that's why we look to have that endorsement, because again, if we were to just try to market the program on our own, we would never be able to recoup our investment, all the cost of the marketing, because iChooser, Texas Power Switch, we bear 100% of the cost of the program, and we just won't get enough people to participate in the program. People will think it's junk mail, they throw it away, or they delete anytime we do an email blast or something like that. We just don't get the participation levels that we need, which is why we do need the support of the cities. But again, we certainly understand and appreciate the sensitivity of it. But it's also why we take the reputation of the cities very seriously. You could call it, like I said, any of the cities. Bob Hart is a big proponent of it in the city of Corinth. So pretty much any of the cities that we work with, you'd be welcome to call and ask about their experience.
What does that do for you? Yeah. Gary, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the presentation, Mr. Harper. I share the concerns of Councilmember Hill and Yingling. I guess you made the analogy of providing trash service through a third party. A little different in that we contract for that service, and so therefore we have control over the quality of that service, and we do hear on a regular basis about the quality of the service, good and bad. I think there are advantages and disadvantages of not having any kind of contractual privity with the provider. I love the fact that your contract has a termination clause, but beyond that, what is the typical length of the agreement?
It's typically 3 years. It's typically a 3-year contract. But again, there's what we're looking for. Really, it's a good faith agreement. Is really what it is. It's a 3-year contract. But again, since cities all have the right to terminate it, you send us an email, and we'll immediately stop marketing the program in your city, and we remove any references to the city. So there's no teeth in it per se. It's not like we don't go after any cities. Besides the fact that if we ever went after a city, that would mean that we'd never be able to win any work with any other cities either, right? That just would not be a smart move on our part. But again, you can cancel at any time. I appreciate your statement that the analogy isn't a perfect analogy. It was more to point out that there are examples of public-private partnerships out there. But you're exactly right. I mean, again, the city doesn't pay us anything. With that said, I will, after every single power switch auction that we do, which we do 3 of them a year, we do provide reports back to the city. So it typically goes through the city manager's office or whoever the city manager directs us to work with. We provide reports around how many people in your city participated, and we also provide reports on how much savings you got for your city. By offering this program, what were the savings that got generated? Because we know how much your residents were paying before, because we do capture that information. So we'll know for person A how much they were paying, and person B how much they were paying. So we can actually calculate what the savings are, and we provide all those reports to the city. So you'll be able to see that after every auction.
So I think you may have just answered my next question. If you've got 3 regularly scheduled auctions per year, did I just understand you right? Those are not specifically for Coppell residents, but you accumulate individuals throughout your system, and all of those individuals then participate in the auction?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we what we do is we aggregate up residents across all the cities that we work with. So we do not run separate individual auctions for each city. It's not like we run we don't run an auction for the city of Waco and then a separate auction for Farmers Branch. We run 3 auctions per year, and we aggregate up the residents across all the cities that participate with us. And that's how we actually get a very competitive price from the retail electric providers, because we wind up with thousands of people that registered. The other thing, back on your previous question, I do want to mention that all communications and all marketing are, before we do anything, everything is approved by the city. So we don't do any marketing at all for the program without explicit approval from city staff. So when we talk about the 2 to 3 hours of time every quarter, it's really 2 or 3 hours for every auction, and again, 3 auctions per year. All communications, anything that we do, anytime we reach out to residents, it always has to be approved by the city, right? So we're never going to do anything rogue or on our own. And then the last thing I'll mention on the previous question is we also provide reports not only on the number of people that participated in your city, but we also provide you customer satisfaction reports as well.
So last question, similar to what you were just saying, do you have any feelings about the way the City of Farmers Branch approached it by branding it as a city program as opposed to your corporate branding?
So initially what we were doing is we were branding it as a Farmers Branch Power Switch program. We've recently switched it to be the Texas Power Switch. From our standpoint, it's better to promote it as a Texas Power Switch, because even people that live outside of one of the sponsoring cities, if you live in a deregulated area, you can participate. What we found was when we were marketing it only as Farmers Branch Power Switch, people said, well, gosh, I don't live in Farmers Branch, right? So I can't sign up. So we've actually worked with our city sponsors over the last 6 months. That's been a very recent change where we've recently branded it to Texas Power Switch. But if one of our partner cities feel strongly that you want it branded with your name, we're happy to do that as well. So we offer the flexibility, but our feeling was that by branding it as Texas Power Switch, that we would actually get more participation from from residents that may live in the outlying areas of some of those cities, and they hear about it, or relatives of residents. And it really is a program that's open to anybody as long as you're in a deregulated area of Texas.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Wes?
Thank you, Mayor. JP, at the beginning of your presentation, you made some comment about that the residents' information was secure, that you didn't share that. I don't remember exactly what you were talking about, but you were basically talking about, security of our citizens' information. Mm-hmm. Then at the end, you said you take care of all the transition when you actually go and transition from one provider to the other. So where's the mix in there of that security and contain of personal information versus being able to do the work for our citizens?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, let me state number one, that we don't collect any personal information. And when I say personal information, we're not collecting social security numbers. We're not collecting date of birth, things like that. And we're not collecting credit card information. So when you hear about data breaches like Home Depot or Target or some of these large retailers, some of the stores and places that have had data breaches, we don't collect any of that information, right? So there's no credit card information to be leaked or anything like that. Again, it's a free service to residents, just like it's free to the cities. But we do have very strict security standards in place on our database, and any type of data exchanges that we do with the retail electric providers, we actually use European standards, which are more strict than what we have in the U.S. Again, I live here in Austin, Texas, and one of the things that I've learned is because iChooser's headquarters are actually in Amsterdam, their standards are probably a good 40 or 50% more strict than what our standards are. But we do abide by very strict data security standards. And I'm not an expert on data security. I mean, we'd be happy to provide the specifics if you wanted to see those. But I can tell you our database administrators and so on, where we do house information, we have all sorts of, NERC, when I say NERC SIP, is North American Electricity Reliability Council, and SIP is the cyber information protection, something like that. But we have to abide by all those in the U.S. But we easily pass all the U.S. standards for cybersecurity.
So, okay, thank you very much. So walk me through the process then. That if I signed up with you, and you conducted a successful auction, and I elected to change over, what would I, as a resident, have to do at that point?
So once you've actually registered for the program, what we do is we then reach out to you through both an email, as well as you would get a letter in the mail that says, who the winning provider is. So you're notified about who the winner is. So just in case you say, well, gosh, I heard about that company and I hate them or whatever it is. So again, there's no obligation. We tell you who the winner is and we tell you what the price is. And then what we do is then we actually facilitate it. Once you give us the okay and you said, yes, I want to switch, then we give your information to the winning retail electric provider, and the winning retail electric provider then works with you to switch you from your current retail electric provider to another retail electric provider, to the winner. The one other thing I do want to mention, because I've been working in the electricity market for 20 years, I will tell you there is absolutely zero chance that your electricity will be turned off in the switching process because of a mistake with the switch. It's the way that ERCOT is the Electric Reliability Council of Texas. There's no risk at having your power turned off and your electricity is going to be turned off for a day or 2 days. And I know that wasn't your question, but I'm trying to preempt a question because that's a concern that's come up in some other council presentations. But the bottom line, your question was about the switching process. Once you say, yes, I want to switch, I like the provider, or I know about the provider, and I like the rate, we actually facilitate that by providing your information to the new retail electric provider, and then you get to choose the day upon which your switch actually happens, because you could be locked into an existing contract. So, for example, the next auction, when we complete the auction on September 15th, the switch window actually opens up. And Kelly, if you're on the line, you might want to unmute. Kelly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to make sure I answer this correctly. But the switch window that we have is actually a 4-month switch window, because we run 3 auctions per year. You can pick any day within that 4-month window to switch your electricity provider. So that way, what we do is we work with you to make sure that you don't incur any early termination fees from your current provider if you're locked into a current contract. Kelly, what I missed there?
No, that was correct.
Is there anything else I missed about the switching process for the council member?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
One of the things that I neglected to say at the beginning of this, and maybe Mike and I should have given a little bit more preview, is this: they did not really come to us. We had heard at some mayor's meetings about this process, and of course I have a pretty good relationship with Robert Dye, who was ranting and raving, Farmers Branch's mayor, who was ranting and raving about their process and how it worked. And Mike had also heard some things. So it was, well, let's check into it. If it is a possibility for us to provide a opportunity for our citizens to be educated. I was shocked when I talked to my friends about how often they look at their electric rate. Some of them is, well, when we moved in, we were told that we had these options and we picked one, and they have done nothing with their bill since. Still have it. I was educated about this early on in my council career, and am one of those people that look at it annually. I don't know if I would sign up for this, but it might pique someone's attention and might actually have them question what they've been doing for the last 20 years. But so we should have probably prefaced this conversation with this, because it was really from the reactions from some of the other municipalities that we thought that it was probably something that we as a group should talk about. Nancy.
Mayor, can I add something?
Uh-huh.
So I heard the councilwoman mention that she regularly shops around. This is not necessarily a program for people that are aware of what they're paying and regularly shop around. It's primarily for the most vulnerable in your community, and I can tell you that by and large that's your senior community. And prior to COVID, I would conduct a lot of in-person virtual, town halls. Now they've gone virtual. Bring your bill sessions, and the attendance is by and large 65 and older. And I can tell you on average, they are paying, when the winning rate in Encore this last time was right around 10.5 cents, and that was the Encore charges included. These people are paying 17, 18 cents a kilowatt. They don't understand what their choices are. They aren't going online to shop. So I just really wanted to highlight that point. This isn't for everyone, and we don't pretend that it's for everybody. It's for the people that aren't regularly making that choice.
Quick question to either JP or Kelly. If a person can find you on their own, are they able to jump into and take advantage of the auction pricing?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
The challenge is it's pretty rare, to Kelly's point that she was just making, it's pretty rare that somebody's going to find us on their own. That therein lies the challenge.
So do you market outside of cities anywhere, or do you only market to cities? Through cities and organizations?
We only market through city channels. Typically what we do is we do ask, from a city perspective, we typically ask for a link to the program to be put on the city website someplace. And then what we do is we work with we get a list of the zip codes that are inside the city. Again, there's a number of different things that we do with city staff. And it's geared at making sure that residents know that the city council specifically has vetted the program and has voted to support the program and to offer it to the residents. But again, without that support, it just is not economically feasible for us to run the program in a city.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? And a comment can also be Mr. Cliff.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is to you. This is really into JP. As some of you know, I'm a small business guy, and I've been a small business guy for a very long time. And one of the things that I do, and I find that the city does the same, is we look for someone that's smarter than we are to help us with these various items, commerce, whatever it happens to be, whether it's electricity or gas or, mowing the yard or whatever. And I always look for experts to handle that for me. I do my due diligence, as we're doing here this evening, but it's just like what we're going to vote on tonight. I mean, I'm assuming that Gupta, who we're going to vote on to pay $175,000 to do some work for us on our pump station, that he is the very best, as far as we know, that's available to do that job. So you always look for experts. I think in this situation, these guys are the expert. I mean, we need, like we've done, we need to do our due diligence, but the facts of the matter are they're the only ones registered in the state. You've got folks that we trust that say they really do a good job. And it looks like that that their model is a good model. I mean, it's a win-win situation, it looks like to me. And so I would be very interested in this city pursuing a relationship with JP and Kelly.
Thank you. Any other comments? I mean, basically what we're looking at here is we want some direction about whether to continue the conversation, or if you're not interested in continuing the conversation, then we need to know that as well. Gary's got a thumbs up. Oh, yeah, depending on where you put your thumb, Wes, it was gone there for a while. That was funny. Sorry. Thumbs up. Okay. All right. So we have 5. So let's continue to get some information.
Yes, ma'am. We will do some further research working with iChooser, and our goal is, because of the calendar they're on, as you heard what he said, that they would start marketing in August, is we would bring something to you on the 28th. Again, if you want to do some more research, he said that they do the marketing reverse auctions 3 times a year. So it doesn't necessarily mean there's pressure to do it on the 28th. It just sets you up so that you could possibly be ready for participation for the next reverse auction. Thank you.
Can we get a copy of that contract as well?
I'm sure it'll be part of the packet.
Okay.
So thank you again, JP and Kelly, for joining us and giving us the overview, and we look forward to future conversations.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you, Mayor, council members.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank
Thanks for the
you.
opportunity to present.
Thank you. Okay, item C is discussion related to ordinances regulating parking on public roadways. And do we have Chief Barton on the line? Yeah, there he is. I just imagine you walking down the stairs here, and now you just got to the microphone, so the microphone is yours.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. The police department was asked to look into the city ordinance around parking on public streets in residential neighborhoods. And, we don't get a whole lot of calls from the police perspective on this. I think over the last 2 years, we've had 11 complaints. But typically we just educate the violation. But as we were looking at the ordinance, we came across a kind of a problem for us, and we found in section 8-3-5 that that's the ordinance that sets out the 2-hour time limit for any trailer, boat trailer, stock trailer, camper trailers, semi trailers, mobile homes, truck tractors, and buses. And that's the one that we typically get called to is this a 2-hour violation. However, we also found in section 9 a definition of a house trailer. And the definition of a house trailer is a house trailer is any vehicle used or constructed to permit its use both as a conveyance upon a public street and occupancy as a dwelling or sleeping place for one or more persons, and shall include both self-propelled and non-self-propelled vehicles. So, here's my stuff. So next slide. Yeah, keep going. Keep going. Okay, so this was the 8-3-5 that I just mentioned with the 2-hour limit, and that's just the wording around all the different trailers and regulated vehicles. So next slide. There's just a picture of the different types of vehicles that are prohibited for longer than 2 hours. And then the next slide is the chapter 9, City Ordinance 952. So that's the definition that I just read. And from where I'm sitting, that looks like an RV, recreational vehicle to me. And this statute has a different time limit. Next slide. So a house trailer can remain on a public street for up to 72 hours. And so those two ordinances are kind of in conflict. And as we did a little bit of research, and it's just the length that the ordinances have been there. The Section 9 ordinance has been there since the 70s, and the Section 8 has been there since I think 94. And so we have this. Our first problem is we have conflicting information because camper trailers are in Section 8.3-5 under a 2-hour window, and then house trailers have the 72. So what we're recommending is that we kind of merge these two definitions and get more clear on what's a recreational vehicle versus a camper. I can tell you that I know for a fact that on one particular call a week or two ago, the officers ran into this issue, and so they kind of they didn't really know which way to go because of the conflicting definitions. And so I think that's the easy part for us to do is clarify the recreational vehicles from campers and boats and things like that. And then decide if we want to maintain that 72-hour limit for the recreational vehicles, or do we want to amend the time limits in both sections if we'd like? And we did some research with some of the cities around, and for the most part, most cities that we checked on, I didn't check every city obviously, but the majority were 24 hours. There was one city that was 48 hours. There was Louisville was 4 hours, and Carrollton still has a 2-hour limit. So the window's pretty wide. I did some, I wouldn't call it research, but I have a lot of officers that are campers, and asked them, what do you think? If you got the big RV, and they said anywhere between 6 and 24 hours they thought was fair, because it takes a long time to get those things ready to go camping, and then to download or undo them once you get back. So those are the questions before us today, is just what kind of a time frame would we want, or would we even want to break out the recreational vehicles from those other vehicles?
Thank you for that. So what I'm hearing, when you started talking about semi-trailers, I'm thinking about somebody moving into my neighborhood and a big semi-trailer is taking everything out and moving it. There isn't any way they're going to do that in 2 hours. So 2 hours seems very ludicrous to me in any situation. We have Nancy, then Wes.
So one of the other issues with it, other than getting it all loaded up, is most of these vehicles have to be stored in storage units in facilities that are, depending on, especially in these days where they're filled up. You may have to drive out to McKinney to get it. You may have to drive out to Hazlitt to get it, because you can't find, as more people participate in this, these facilities fill up. So you may have to drive out to McKinney to go get your recreational vehicle, to bring it back to Coppell, for example, to load it up, but then you'd have to take it back over to McKinney because of the hours that facility is open. And then if you're going on a cross-country trip, you'd have to, and you want to leave at 5 or 6 in the morning, you'd have to go back out to McKinney, but those places aren't even open then. So a lot of these storage facilities don't open until maybe 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning. It depends, they close 10 at night, or if you get back late from a trip, then the storage facility is closed. Every facility is different, but there are those facilities that have hours that you can enter and exit. So that's just another issue that can come up with that. And that was from the folks who came here in October of 18 who were telling us their story about sport. I'm not even thinking of the kid issue that goes with it, because my kids are grown, but having all those kids that you have to get, they have a lot more things to get loaded up. So getting things organized and getting it together, I think that it's a fair thing to ask for at least that 24 hours to get it there, so you don't have to. I mean, people are working, try and get it to where it's at, then get loaded up, and then they can leave early in the morning to go get on their big adventure.
So Wes.
Thank you. So I've never even, I thought I had read most of our codes, but I do not remember 925. If you want the opinion of one, I don't like the 72 hours. That is just, especially for a house trailer, that's inviting, it to be used as a weekend neighbor or a family retreat area. So that just really, I don't think is appropriate, my opinion.
I don't like that either.
Yeah, the 2 hours I understand. I mean, I got cited one time for having my boat trailer parked in front of my house for half an afternoon. So, well, I was warned, I wasn't cited. So I understand that. I can see going up on the 2 hours. I think, Danny, your original suggestion about combining these and perhaps clarifying it, taking the time to clarify it, is probably the best thing to do, especially if the one has been in existence since, what did you say, 1970 or something like that?
75, yes.
So I'd strongly, I'd like to see it cleaned up so that our officers aren't left with a dilemma about which one to enforce, and also make it reasonable for our citizens. But just to be clear, the 72 hours I consider way too long.
I have watched our neighbors get ready for a across the globe trip. It kind of feels that one year they went to Alaska and everywhere in between, and this year they went the other direction. They went east and everywhere in between. So I have seen them get it all ready and then get it all done, and it seemed to be more than 24 hours, especially if you've been going on long trips. So I would say it was at least 24 hours. Now they have their own little pad to be able to do that in their backyard, but they don't keep it there on a regular basis. So there's got to be a medium in there somewhere. Miss Brianna?
Thank you, Mayor. So Chief, if we consolidate, that would include, when you say, I guess from a clarification standpoint, it would include boats, trailers, campers, when you say recreational vehicles, anything that pulls, ATVs, whatever it may be, right? That would be all inclusive?
If we merge them, yeah.
Okay.
If we decide not to separate one or two for
Right.
whatever reason.
I mean, I think that makes it a little clearer. I know too from having a pop-up camper that, we struggled with the hours because it ends at, I guess you have to get it out before 10 p.m. and then getting it ready, and we were panicking and then calling HOA president and saying, hey, that's here. We'll be gone first thing in the morning, just so you know, if it's over 2 hours. So I do think, I do like the combination of the ordinances, the clarification. I think 2 hours is absolutely unrealistic. And I think 72 hours is too long. So, 24, 48, I don't know, somewhere makes sense, just to be able to going there and coming back, just to be able to have time on what you do. And considering our current situation, I've noticed a lot more recreational vehicles out and about. And so I think that would also help out our police officers so that, there's, again, more clarification across the board. Thank you.
Apparently, our city attorney would like to add something.
Boats, RVs, SUVs, whatever you got, are they all getting 48 hours?
That's what we're discussing right now.
Because there might be a difference than if I'm a truck driver and I leave my truck there versus I leave my motor coach there. Those are two totally different things. So those treatments, or I leave a storage container
So
there.
we're talking, I think we are talking more about residential or personal vehicles, and the commercial vehicles, I think, should be separated.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
One man's RV is another man's trailer.
Well, actually, 835 does call out tractors, so that would be the power head of an 18-wheeler. It gives it the same treatment.
Mr. Peterbilt, yes. I remember your time at Peterbilt. But
it did ring a bell there, yes.
So you may want to treat different things, like a boat trailer is a lot different than a motor coach, and I understand that. I'm just kind of, I'll write whatever you tell me to write, and I'll work with the police department, but please differentiate those things and how you treat them, because the problem are different. And having represented some other cities that are not as nice as Coppell, it's a problem.
Mark?
I think we need to keep the two sections separate and have different time frames for each. I mean, I understand the necessity of packing campers and RVs, motorhomes, and I'm not opposed to giving people, you come in on a Sunday evening, and then the next day you got to go clean it all out and then I can see that giving them 36 hours would be fine, but there's no need to have semis and boats and other vehicles parked for an excessive amount of time. I mean, I would say back to that lower limit where it was. I don't know if 2 hours is probably too little, but 8 hours I would think would be reasonable. Or 6 hours even. Thank you.
Okay, so am I hearing that we want to separate these and bring back a better delineation of the two things? And am I hearing that on the first part of that, when you're talking about trailers, stock trailers, semi-trailers, a mobile home is different than a motor home, correct?
Yeah, a mobile home would be like a mobile home park where residents live. Yeah,
and a tractor or truck tractor, and then though I have seen some buses that were
converted
coaches.
Yeah. One of the problems is, as Chief has pointed out, this ordinance is older than I am. So,
excuse me.
That is. The definitions are, and so what we have with these, not too far off. A lot of the definitions don't apply anymore, and they need updated. So
we need to update, and then
when we do a presentation, I would encourage us to have pictures of what those things are, so that you can have a visual learning session as well as trying to do it in the abstract. So I think it does need some serious updating because of this too.
So, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
So after rereading paragraph B here, I'll retract my statement about combining them, because we do have a mix of both commercial vehicles and some others that, like stock trailers. I don't think I'd want to see those parked in front of my house for 48 hours. So I do agree that we probably need to separate them and let Bob give a try at cleaning up the language.
Yeah. I think doing commercial as opposed to recreational vehicles that people have for their enjoyment of with their families and stuff, that they're completely two different things. Like if somebody was a semi-tractor trailer and that was their business and they wanted to park their semi-truck in front of their at least the cab of it.
One of the things you'll find, not that someone in Coppell would do this, but some other places they'll move that trailer 3 feet, 4 feet, and so we have to put consecutive hours, then 7-day period. I mean, I hate to do that, but if you don't, it creates a loophole.
Right.
So, you bring it out Friday, you go to Lake Louisville, you bring it back Sunday, and you leave it both times. So then it's out there more than what you're intending. If your intended is it's occasional, that's one thing, but if it's every weekend, those are the challenges of writing these kinds of ordinances, is you've got a period of time, but how often? If it's every weekend and then the motor coach is in front of the guy's house every weekend, then it becomes more of a nuisance.
Right.
Versus every 6 months, 3 days or 2 days.
You need
to have to go through
you
have to go through those machinations to understand why the rules are what they are.
Well, and I also think that if we look at this, and then if it becomes an issue, if we talk to Chief Barton and we start saying, okay, there's all these kind of calls that are coming in, we need to look at that again. So at least, because Again, South Lake has 72. I'm not speaking for 72 hours.
You're more apt to get a complaint that I've got this problem because the neighbor's parking there every weekend.
Right.
That's how you're going to find out about it.
Right, but right now, when
you
Chief Barton said in the last 2 years we've had 11 complaints, I don't think that it's an excessive problem here. So I don't think because we changed the ordinance it's going to turn into a problem. I think we should give, like the people that came here in October of 18 and asked for this, that we should give some.
I'm just saying it's challenging to write it, that's all. And
Right.
It creates an unintended.
Right.
It creates unintended consequence. That's
right.
all. And you're the policymakers.
Yeah, but if it creates those unintended consequences, then we can rein it
then
in
we
a
can
little more.
reevaluate it.
Yeah.
But I think we should at least give it a shot and see and try to help the people that have come before us, the citizens in the past asking for this. So.
Sure. I mean, that's
Okay.
a policy issue.
Thank you. So we're going to let you guys take a shot at it and bring it back. Okay. Discussion regarding backyard chickens. We have Matt Steer and Mary Perone Boswell coming in. Oh, there's Mr. Steer. Smile. We have 7 minutes.
All right, Mayor, Council, good evening. We wanted to bring forward a work session presentation as a follow-up to the item brought forward by Ms. Visconti on May 26th. At that meeting, she presented the environmental, health, and educational benefits and ultimately recommended that we consider allowing 4 hens on properties under 7,500 square feet and 6 hens on properties over 7,500 square feet and prohibit roosters. Tonight, we're presenting what the current ordinance states. We're giving a little history of the ordinance, what surrounding cities are doing, and what was introduced at the state level. Ultimately, we'd like some direction from council as to whether you would like us to pursue additional research or changing even our ordinance. So what does the current ordinance permit? The uses allowed within the agricultural district of the zoning ordinance allow for farming type uses, but state that no cause shall poultry, fowl, or swine be kept nearer than 100 feet from any property. And chickens are expressly prohibited in all residential districts. Next slide, please. On February 3rd, 1964, W.T. Cosby signed the Enclosure of Chickens Ordinance for the town of Coppell, so that chickens, among other animals, were required to be in enclosures. The population at that time was 1,500 residents. In 1979, the zoning ordinance allowed for farming in residential districts, provided that no poultry was within 100 feet from a property line. Population at that time was 1,700. Then in 1983, the zoning ordinance was amended to expressly prohibit swine and poultry from all residential districts. And upon review of the minutes from that meeting, I could not find any documented discussion related to the change. But the population at that time was 3,800, which had nearly or over doubled from what it was in 1979. So I imagine they were on the verge of the housing boom. Next slide, please. After reviewing the surrounding and market cities ordinances, it appears as though the majority allow backyard chickens in single-family residential districts, and typical regulations within single-family district limit the number of chickens. They require some distance between the enclosure and the property line and or neighboring residence or business, and they place restrictions on roosters. And we'll see in these next 2 slides a sample of the surrounding and market cities we researched. Annual permits were required in some, ranging between $10 and $20. Enclosures were required. Some had minimum distance requirements, measuring between the neighboring residence or business and the chicken coop, and those range between 25 and 50 feet. Next slide. And some minimum distances from property lines, 5 to 10 feet. They almost all have a limit on the number of chickens, and this ranged between 4 maximum to 25 maximum to no limit. And the majority did prohibit roosters. Next slide, please. Senate Bill 86 was introduced at the 2019 legislative session. This was not approved, related to the regulation of raising 6 or fewer chickens. When it was introduced, it prohibited an HOA from placing restrictions on keeping 6 or fewer chickens. Then it placed limitations on what the city could regulate. Said we could restrict the number of chickens an individual may raise or keep in excess of 6. We could prohibit the breeding of poultry, raising or keeping roosters, and we could set the minimum distance an individual must maintain between a chicken coop and a residential structure. As is what made its way through the legislative process, next slide, the limitations on the HOA were removed, but in the end, it was not approved. But we do anticipate this being revisited in the future. Next slide. Staff's asking for council to provide direction on whether to pursue additional research, drafting an ordinance amendments, and ultimately holding necessary public hearings to allow for chickens in residential areas, if that's what you wish. Ultimately, if that's what you decide for staff to pursue, then these are the parameters we would consider in regulating chickens. The minimum lot size, the number of chickens, whether or not roosters would be allowed, minimum distance from the enclosure to neighboring dwellings, and minimum setbacks from property lines. And that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I have Mary Crone Boswell with me to assist, as she assisted in the Louisville adoption of their chicken regulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. Any thoughts? Gary?
Yeah, I was interested in the Louisville ordinance that capped total number of animals. If I'm correct, we have a limitation on how many dogs and cats you can have, correct?
I believe so. I really do.
And so I guess what I'm thinking is if we said you could have 6 chickens, but you can also have 6 dogs and 6 cats and 6 whatever, that would be problematic for me. So I like the concept of kind of having a limitation on animals. I have some concern about how we monitor and enforce all of this, but I thought that was an interesting concept.
Is this typically monitored by neighborhood complaint?
It is today.
Yes. I mean, I don't really want my neighbors to have chickens, but that's, you know.
I have an opinion on roosters.
Well, and most of these were no roosters.
No roosters.
These were no roosters.
Yeah,
so,
that's,
yeah. Mark?
There we go. Can we go back to the slide which had the comparisons between the cities? I mean, I think that there's several cities that have some good restrictions if we're going to consider this. Could you go back to those slides? There. Okay, there we go. Let me see it. You know, I think it really the definition that or the restriction that's put on the number, maxing it at 6 if it's less than an acre, I think that's way too high. I mean, I would say a maximum of 4 if less than an acre. Absolutely no peafowl should be allowed because those things are so loud that you may as well allow roosters in that case. And then if you can go to the next one. No slaughter in public, I think, would be important to include if we were going to do that, along with a minimum separation from any dwelling Keeping it like at least 50 feet, and the prohibition of offensive odors. It would be crucial to put in any kind, and then of course no roosters should be allowed. And that's my 2 cents worth.
Does anybody
Mayor?
else have? Okay, did I just hear Wes?
Yes, you did. I'm kind of in line with you. I don't want my neighbors to have the chickens, and specifically roosters need, unless you've got, more than an acre, and that's not even for those things. That's really not even enough. I just don't. I understand the ask, but I'm struggling to reconcile the way our city is constructed and the way that we live here to enable the keeping of chickens. And Gary's got good points on the number of animals. We are limited to 4 animals, and that's the way that section of the code is written. A combination of dogs or cats.
So if it's 4 animals, so if you say 4 animals, dogs, cats, or chickens?
I don't know.
No roosters? Or
Well,
combination
that's
thereof?
what Louisville had done was they said 6, no more than 6 chickens, but then you toss in your dogs and cats in the mix. So those, yeah.
Mm. Gary, did you have a thought?
Yeah, I tend to agree with the mayor and with Council Member Mays. I don't really have a lot of desire to have chickens. I've lived around chickens, and this concept that they can be kept clean, I think, is difficult. But I do think if we've got a large number of people that want to do that, we should try to accommodate them. The concept of putting a 50-foot limit, though, between that and any dwelling, I think effectively for most backyards is going to prohibit from happening. So I think if we want it to happen, then that distance needs to be shorter, or we're going to effectively put together an ordinance that prevents it from happening. So.
Brianna?
Yeah, I'll echo what Councilmember Roden said, and that was my question is, too, when you talk about the distance, like, are we kind of setting a situation where there's not really many places that kind of fit those restrictions? I again, like Councilmember Mays, I understand the ask, but I just really struggle with it. I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for this right now, to have chickens. I guess my other question would be from staff. Have we, I know we looked into ordinances that other cities have. Have we talked to staff members in those cities about any issues that they have had with that particular ordinance or complaints or anything having to do with chickens in backyards?
No, we haven't gone into that extensive research, but Mary, she did work for the city of Louisville, so she might be able to answer that question just tonight. I don't want to put her on the spot, but I am, I guess.
You already did.
Yeah, she can.
She has the cow in the background on her.
I do.
Yeah, I see that.
So I think, as one of you mentioned earlier, a lot of these, when you get, it's more complaint based. I remember when I worked in Louisville, we had someone who complained because it was a rooster. So they had to go out there and tell them that they couldn't have a rooster. So they've looked at this chicken ordinance numerous times. I think they've updated it a couple times. I don't think, I can check with them, but I think typically you have about a handful of people that actually apply for some type of permit. I don't think it's something where people will come out of the woodwork wanting to put chickens in their backyard. But you always have a handful of people who are interested in that. My daughter being one of them. But I think HOAs may have restrictions on that might be even more stricter than what the city allows. So I think there's just probably a handful of people. I can check with Louisville to see how many people actually do pull permits for this type of use, and we can get back with you.
Mr. Cliff.
Yes, as I recall from the presentation that was made to us, she talked about chickens running around in the yard. So the same thing that Gary said is on my mind. You can't, I mean, you can't say you can't get them closer than 10 feet or 20 feet because, then they'd have a path about 8 feet wide down the middle of their backyard where the chickens could be. So that's going to be an issue to try to determine what would be appropriate there. And you can't, I don't think you can do because of the average yard that you would have in Coppell, you can't confine them to a chicken coop or a chicken yard. They're going to have the run of the, I think the owners are going to want the chickens to have the run of the backyard if they're in the backyard, as opposed to some, lane down that they can run up and down.
I'm envisioning my backyard with chickens.
It would look good. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
Yeah, it would.
My son has chickens. I've seen what they do out there.
Mayor?
I mean, ma'am. Sorry. Who said ma'am? Yes, Mary.
So, in Louisville, they do have requirements that you have to have them in an enclosure and that you have to provide a chicken coop, so you can't let them run all over the yard. So there are additional requirements in relation to how they are kept within a residential lot. So it's not just a free-for-all. So they do have to have, a coop, and you have to provide for, so that you don't have rodents getting into their food, so that you don't have other animals trying to steal the chickens or eat the chickens. So there's more requirements for those chickens if you do decide to have them.
Okay, we're going way late. So, Bijou, do you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Matt, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
In your presentation, you mentioned a state Senate bill not approved, but they provided some guidelines. Is that guidelines for the cities to comply with, or what is the meat of that?
Yeah, so it was basically something that went through the state legislation, but ultimately it was not signed into law. So it was just a bill that was introduced, but it's been introduced for the last few legislative sessions.
So are we in compliance with the backyard chickens, or not?
We are today. Yeah. That law is not in effect. So we don't have to permit chickens.
Okay, I'm going to look at everybody and give me a little high sign, a yes or a no, whether you want us to move forward or not. We have 1 yes, 2 yeses, 3 yeses, 1, 2, 3, 4 no's.
Thank you.
Right now, you have 4 no's. Write those names down, yes. Okay. So thank you guys for all that work. I'm sure they'll come back again. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The time now is 7:41, and we will adjourn from work session. You have a 3-minute break. And for those of you who are watching, that was our work session that has gone a little long. So we're going to take a 3-minute break, and we will be right back.
Yeah, remind them on there.
Okay, now let's move to regular session. And the time is 7:48. We took a little longer than anticipated, but So, chickens and, yep. All policy decisions, so major ones, so. Okay, so item 4 is the invocation, and we have Councilmember Brianna Hinojosa-Smith to give us our invocation, and then please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Please bow your heads and join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we humbly come to you in prayer, thanking you for all of our many blessings. Thank you for our city, our leaders, our healthcare providers, all of the frontline workers, especially our first responders. May we continually seek wisdom as we look to the days ahead. May we have the insight and guidance that is needed to do what is best for our city and our citizens. We also ask for wisdom for all of our leadership across the state and across this great country. We continually ask for your protection for all of our citizens here locally and abroad through this difficult time. Please help us to continue to be safe and healthy. We also ask for your special blessings on those who have been impacted either physically or financially during this difficult time. For those whose lives have been lost, please place a hedge of love, mercy, and peace around their families. Again, Heavenly Father, we are grateful for all of your blessings. Please bless this meeting. In your name we pray. Amen.
Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge to of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, justice for all. Wow, that was bad. We were not in sync. Okay. Item 6 is citizens' appearance. Do we have anyone who has signed up for citizens' appearance? There has been no one. So we will move to item 7, which we have Jerry Harwell. Hi, Jerry. And Louie Rahel here to talk to us about Republic Services.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Our current solid waste contract between the City of Coppell and Republic Services will expire on October 31st, 2021. Jerry Harwell, Republic Service Manager, will update the Council on the status of the current contract and any proposed changing going forward. Jerry Harwell.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. It's a privilege to be here with you, even if we're on Zoom. I miss seeing everybody. I've got lonely virus instead of coronavirus. So I just wanted to, and please excuse the typo on this first slide because your contract does expire October 31st. You do have 2 renewal options available after the 7-year term expires next year, but there is a 12-month window where we need to determine if we're going to renew or not renew. If we're not going to renew, then we would need to notify you 12 months in advance. If we could go to the next slide, please. So your current level of service is Monday and Thursday, up to 10 solid waste bags and cans. I did want to give you a kind of a little bit of a update as to including your trash and your bulk, which we also pick up on Monday and Thursday, which would be furniture and other oversized waste. We're getting an average of about 1,291 tons a month. So we are cleaning up the city those 2 days a week without a doubt. On your recycle, we collect that on Wednesday, and it's a 65 or 95 gallon container. And I am happy to report that the majority of the residents in Coppell are asking for the 95s in place of the 65s. So that's a good thing. we're doing about 340 tons a month on recycle. And then on your yard waste trimmings, which is unlimited yard waste trimming bags or bundled brush, as long as it's cut under 5 feet and weighing less than 40 pounds, we're getting about 230 tons, which is keeping all of that out of the landfill. So we're really happy to report that. You have an HHW collection, which is unlimited at your porch, weekly collection after it gets scheduled. If they call in before Friday at noon, it's scheduled for the following week, and we send out the packets. I will tell you, pre-COVID, we were doing about 90 HHW and e-waste collections a month, and in May we did 163. Any idea what everybody's at home doing? So, and then on your landfill usage, they have up to 1 free time per month trip to the landfill. Pre-COVID, we saw about 80 residents a month, and in May we saw 153. So people were definitely tired of being at home, so they were taking trips to the landfill. We're certainly happy to get it cleaned up however we need to. The next slide, please. So I did want to kind of bring up, no company is going to be able to come in and say they would never have a miss, because if it's the customer's perception that it was missed, then it's missed. So even if they put it out behind the truck or we tagged it or whatever that might be, I do want to bring up that in May, we had 14 misses of trash, and then we had 4 recycled, 23 yard waste. But when you consider that we drive by every house in Coppell 4 times a week, those numbers are very minuscule. They still mean something to us. It's still something that we track. We discuss with the drivers the following morning before they go back out on route. And in most cases, if we start to see a trend, then we start to do whatever's necessary to coach that driver. The next slide is about the property damage. So in the very beginning, we had a lot of rut damage because you have a lot of alleys, and I am happy to report that that is down to a very minimal amount. And typically on rainy weeks, we may have a little clip of a yard here and there, but for the most part, we've eliminated all of the property damage. Next slide, please. So, in my mind, your top 5 reasons to continue that partnership is because of the 5 R's of Republic. We're respectful, responsible, reliable, resourceful, and relentless. I think after we're coming up on our 6-year anniversary, I've been with the contract since the very beginning. I'm the one that did the RFP. It's actually my signature on the contract, and I'm very proud of the job that we've done to partner with the city. Republic Services wants to continue our partnership, continue to go in the same direction that we're going. There have been some questions about whether or not there would be any changes desired on either side, and it's kind of up to the council if there's anything they'd like for us to pursue to discuss with staff to see about changing. But in our mind, it's working really well. We're keeping some things out of the landfill we need to. And next slide, please. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you from our team for the past 6 years and beyond. And I'll answer any questions that you guys might have. I have tons of papers here, so it might take me a minute to answer the question, but feel free to ask anything you'd like to ask.
Thank you for being here with us, Jerry. Your whole vernacular has to change in these kind of times. I had a question regarding just something that's out there that people are saying, and when people say, I don't even know why we recycle, because that just goes to the landfill. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Absolutely. So the facility that actually is partnered with the city of Coppell, actually has a material recovery facility on our site. So those trucks are actually, they're not going anywhere near the landfill. It's going directly to the MRF. We are diligently recycling every possible piece of material that we can to keep it out of the landfill. The more that we keep out of the landfill, the longer the life of the landfill remains. The sooner those landfills start to fill up, the further out that we're all going to have to go, and it's just going to end up costing everybody more money. So as we've worked our way through the recycling debacle with China and looking for other opportunities, I'm very proud of the fact that in Fort Worth we can still recycle glass. There's many companies out there that cannot recycle glass, even some facilities within Republic. So we want to recycle everything possible to save that airspace at the landfill.
Thank you. Councilmember Roden.
Thank you for the presentation. I remember when we signed this contract, there seemed to be a trend of other cities going to once a week normal trash pickup. And I think we all felt very strongly that that we needed twice a week, even though it was going to cost us more. I can remember when we had kids at home, once a week would have been a real challenge. Have you seen that trend continue with those cities, or have they come back to the twice a week pickup?
The cities that actually went to once a week have kind of stuck with that once a week, but what you'll see, and I'm guilty of this myself, and I live by myself. It's just me and the dog. I have 2 carts. It's not because I put out 2 carts every week, but when I need that second cart, I want to make sure that I have it. So what we have found with the cities that went to once a week, they've stuck with the once a week, but a lot of their residents will have 2, 3, 4 carts. But we have not had any cities recently go from twice a week to once a week.
Councilmember Mays, and then Councilmember Yingling, because now I don't look that way anymore.
Finally got you trained. So, Jerry, thank you very much for the presentation. I remember very clearly this, I think right after a couple of us that are still on council were elected, that this was one of the first major decisions that we, participated in. There was a lot of study, a lot of back and forth, and your team certainly, did a good job to convince us. And I think it was the right decision at the time. I'm still getting an occasional email about some of the trucks rutting the neighborhoods. Do you know if those are coming from one specific area, or is it just a random complaint?
It's typically a random complaint, and when it happens the most is when the regular driver is on vacation, and we'll see that. The good news is that we actually have a company that we work directly with in Coppell, actually, that as soon as the driver notifies the supervisor, we notify them and they're out there to fix it. So I think you're not ever going to 100% get rid of those. I have a mill person that drives into my yard every day. And I filled it in 100 times. If it's not wet, it doesn't leave a rut. And if it is, it does. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that I'm not going to change our habits. But we do work with the drivers. And now we've got them communicating with us. The majority, probably 85% of the drivers that are in Coppell today started this contract. And they take ownership and pride in what they do there. So that makes a difference as well. And I think that's kind of why you'll see that continue to decline.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, Jerry. I, too, like Councilmember Mays said, that was here when the decision was made to switch over and to bring you guys on. And I think you've done a great job. Me personally, at my residence, it's been stellar, been great. I do have a question because my ear has been bent recently about the rutting issues and some damage. Let me ask you about this. The people who've contacted me have talked about when they had an issue that they were turned over to the insurance company, and then they had to deal with the insurance company, which has become quite a bit of a, for them it has happened. So it's been a little bit of an issue for them because it's kind of a beat down for them to have to go back and forth with an insurance company. I don't want to see our residents having to deal with an insurance company if there's a property complaint. So can you fill me in a little bit about your processes on that?
Well, actually, that complaint goes directly to us unless they've gotten somebody at the call center that's put that complaint in. That should be going directly to the supervisor, and we have a process that we follow, and it's a very stringent process. I know I wrote it so that we would not have those kinds of issues, because this is not handled by our insurance company. It is handled locally. And that was a commitment that we made to the city. So if it's okay with you, Councilwoman, I'd like to reach out to you, get that person's information, and see what I can do to resolve that.
Okay, yeah, I would appreciate that, because when I was told that, I was not under the impression that our citizens would have to deal with insurance complaint through.
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right.
No, ma'am.
I'm glad to know that that's not the process.
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
And if you will email me, Jerry, I'll send you that information.
You bet. I sure will.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So I guess thank you very much for being here. If there's no other questions, is there anything that we are going to do in the next several months?
Well, Louie, could you, I think the way, Jerry, that you explained it may have confused it a little bit. The notification actually needs to come from us, not from you, as far as the renewal, right?
It's both sides actually need, if either one of us are not going to renew, we need to notify.
Right. The reason why I want to be clear on that, because if the council has a desire to renew, we need to hear the affirmative of that from the council, to your question, Mayor.
Okay.
Because if you're not going to renew, it kicks off a whole process of an RFQ. And if y'all recall, we brought on a consultant to help us on the specifications, and it takes time. Doesn't mean, again, Republic can't bid on the work or whatever, but it just kicks off a process, and it kicks off a new expense. And so I don't know that tonight, after hearing the report, and y'all might want to think about it a little bit, but we are going to have to get some affirmative either way in the next month
or so.
Right.
Okay.
Can I vote?
Quick question. So if we say we want to renew, how are the terms going to change? Are they?
There won't be any change in the terms. The issue, each year we bring to the council any changes in the rate, right? So you do vote on the rate, and that typically it takes place, if I remember right, in January, February, right, Louie? January. Right. So
Yes,
that
sir.
has been your normal course of action. What's new is that we have this renewal period that you have to take into account, and so we just have to have the direction. And Jerry, I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit, just because I know we've been talking about it. We know that there's going to be some change in the recycling rate this year, correct?
Actually, I'm pretty happy to report that I believe we'll be able to renew status quo.
Okay.
If we're not going to change any service. Now, the good Republic Services employee that I am, I should be asking you for more money, but however, we have been good partners. We want to continue to be good partners, and at this time, we are not looking at changing anything. The only thing with this contract that would be different is it would not be a 7-year agreement. It's a 5-year renewal with a remaining one other 5-year option. And that increase that comes to you every January is actually a fixed increase. And so it's a standard increase that just goes through.
So Bob, on the renewal, then it'd be an action item for the council then for signature? So there would be an item on the agenda to do so? Yes. Okay, that's how it goes forward.
Okay.
All right?
Okay. Louie, do you have anything to add?
No, I'm planning to come, again in 2 weeks or next month to get some direction in case you want to see any changes in the contract. But if you don't desire to do any changes, you just give us the green light so we could sit down with Republic and make sure that this happens before the end of this year.
Yeah.
So we're not rushed in time.
No, but what I heard Jerry say is that it was really an October number. It was not a December date, right? Is that what you said?
That is correct.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, you're probably talking fiscal year. I was talking calendar year. Okay, we're good.
It's okay.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Jerry. We really appreciate you. I don't know if we'll be seeing you at TML convention or not, so I'm looking forward to the next time that I can actually see your face.
Me too. Thank you very much, and I appreciate it. It's great to see everybody.
Thank you, and take care.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 8 is the consent agenda. The consent agenda items are on the screen. Today we have items A, B, C, and D. These are items that are normally enacted in one motion, and they are either routine in nature or have been previously approved by previous council action. Are they on the screen? There we go. There we go. Can you make those full screen? If somebody's trying to read them on the screen. Okay. Is there any item that someone would like to get additional information or look at separately? Seeing none, is there a motion? Councilmember Mace?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve consent agenda items 8A through 8D.
Thank you. Second by Councilmember Yingling. I looked. All in favor?
Long, Hinojosa Smith, Mays, Roden, Yingling, Matthew Hill. None opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 9. This is I'm going to open the public hearing. This is an item that has been continued. Consider approval of PD 302-HC DFW office, a zoning change request from PD 272R4-LI to HC to PD 302HC to approve a detailed site plan for 54,400 square feet of office building on 4.81 acres located at the southwest corner of State Highway 121 and Northwestern Drive and at the request of Half Associates. Ms. Perron Boswell is here again to tell us what's going on with this particular item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item was continued. The public hearing was continued from the May City Council meeting. I did reach out to the applicant, and they have actually submitted a letter to withdraw the case at this time. They hope to come back at a later date with this proposal. I believe with COVID and everything else going on, they're still trying to work out some of the financial aspects of this project and hope to come back at a later date. So they are withdrawing at this time.
Okay, well, I was hoping that the second part of that was what you were going to say and that it wasn't just going away. So there really is no action that we need to take on this?
Next slide. No, Mayor. This is just informational for for all of you just to know that they did formally withdraw and hope to come back at a later date.
Okay.
Next slide.
So
Thank you.
the question was, there is no action. So you just skip it. You don't even close the public hearing, you just skip it.
You can just, if you'd like, and maybe Mr. Hager can confirm, but I think just recognize that that item has been withdrawn.
Okay.
And thought that there was a public hearing tonight, may have come or wanted to comment, and we would let them know that the item's been withdrawn, but there's no further action from the
Okay,
council.
perfect. Thank you. Okay, so then we will move to item 10. We'll again open the public hearing. Consider approval of PD 303H RVIS office expansion and zoning request from historic to plan development 3030 historic to approve a detailed site plan to allow for approximately 1,782 square feet expansion and additional parking to an existing 1,548 square foot professional office on 0.65 acres of property located at 412 West Bethel at the request of Tommy Waters, TWKW Enterprises, being represented by John Valentine Premier Construction. So, Mary?
Mayor, Council, actually, I'm going to present.
Okay.
This. So next slide,
You don't look
please.
like Mary. Hello, Mr. Steer.
Okay, so this is located at 412 West Bethel. The property does have a long history. It is included in the Historic Resource Survey provided by the Historic Society. It was built in 1940 as a residence and converted to a general contractor's construction office in 2005. The Historical Society has been notified, and they stated that they're fine with the request because they're actually taking place in the rear of the property. Next slide, please. In 2011, the property was 1.2 acres in size. Next slide. A replat was approved that divided off 0.9 acres from the northern portion of the subject property into the rear portion of, next slide, lots 4 and 5, Block 1, Old Coppell Estates. Next slide. In 2012, the adjacent commercial property on Bethel, shown in purple, was owned by Paragon Cable, and a fiber optic substation was located there. This was sold to the adjacent residential properties, next slide, to the east and incorporated in their lots. Next slide. The property was yet again replatted in March 2019. Next slide. Increased the size of the property to 0.6 acres by reincorporating the 0.3 acres from Old Coppell Estates addition, Lot 4R2, Block 1, formerly Lot 4, Block 1. Concurrent with the replatting, a rezoning took place to align the historic district boundary with the eastern property line. Next slide. So that brings us to today. This is the current proposal shown here with north pointing to the right. This is to add 1,780 square feet to the rear of the structure and extend the drive and add 5 parking spaces. Next slide. Currently, on the east and northern property lines, there's an existing 8-foot board-on-board fence shown in blue. They are proposing to add a fence on the western property line and enclose the north of the building running east and west. This is shown in red. So the fence on the east and then north of the building running east and west is shown in red. And this will exempt the back parking from the landscaping requirements of the ordinance that calls for a tree at the end of each parking row. So they're meeting the overall landscaping requirements by exceeding the 30% area However, they're requesting a variance to the 10-foot perimeter on the western property line, and that's widen the drive for better maneuverability. We're supportive of that request. They are adding 9 red oaks with 14 crepe myrtles to the perimeter, satisfying their perimeter landscape requirement. So back to the blue fence on the east and north property lines. Where you have adjacency to a residential use, a masonry wall is typically required. And we're recommending that an exception to this be made to this requirement for several reasons. One, the majority of the wall would not be readily visible from Bethel Road. 2, the adjacent property to the east changed from commercial to residential after the office was in operation, and this was out of the control of this property owner. 3, this will help us retain a longtime business that has the need to expand and is good for Old Town. And lastly, the property owner has contacted and explained the request to the adjacent property owners, and they're satisfied with the fence, provided it can be maintained and repaired as needed. And I've spoken with our city attorney, and we can provide verbiage in the ordinance that relates to this. Next slide, please. As mentioned, the existing building is 1,550 square feet, and the proposal is 1,780 square feet. The expansion is shown boxed in red. They're not proposing to change anything on the existing elevations, and will match the horizontal siding and paint color with the proposed addition. A handicap ramp is proposed on the west elevation and will ensure that it complies with ADA and Texas accessibility standards. Next slide. We sent out 16 notices within 200 feet and received 5 letters from the adjacent property owners stating that they were in favor of the proposal. We also sent out 198 notices as a courtesy to those within 800 feet. And we have not received any other correspondence stating anyone wished to speak or read anything into the record. Next slide. The Planning and Zoning Commission on June 18th unanimously recommended approval subject to the following conditions. 1, building plans are not fully reviewed at this time. Comprehensive building plan review will take place with the building permit submittal. 2, on the drainage plan, show the tie into the city system. Detailed engineering review will be performed during the engineering permit process. Plans will need to show sizes and slopes of proposed storm drains. 3, a 72 linear foot encroachment into the 10-foot landscape perimeter area on the western property line. 4, allowing for the existing 8-foot fence in lieu of a brick wall screening requirement on the eastern and northern property lines. And finally, 5, noting that the staining, maintenance, and replacement responsibility of the fence, including but not limited to the integrity of the building elements or materials, shall be the sole responsibility of the property owner. Such maintenance and or repair shall be performed annually or more often as needed. And that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw Mr. Valentine on here earlier. Is he still online?
I believe so. I see his name.
Mr. Valentine, do you have anything you would like to add to the presentation? You're on mute. Mr. John, you're on mute.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you have anything you would like to add?
Well, Mayor, thank you for your time, and Council, thank you for your consideration. I feel very comfortable. I was the person that went to the neighboring residences concerning the fence line, whether there was any concern about maintaining the current fence or bringing in a brick and mortar type fence that the city requires. And they're all fine with that. There was an issue that Tommy Waters, who's on here as well, was happy to meet, and that was they were concerned about line of sight above the fence in the back addition, where we're going to put the extra parking and some asphalt for parking of some RVs and things. And so what we're going to do, the big issue was, we'd like to not see that if we can. And so adding the 9 red oaks and the 14 crepe myrtles, I think accomplishes that to everybody's satisfaction.
Thank you very much. There has been no one that has signed up to speak. Is this correct? So I will turn it over to council for any comments, questions, thoughts. Councilmember Roden.
I'm in support of this this application. I do think that there are times where our approach of having a masonry wall, which is required between a commercial and a residential use, is not appropriate, particularly in the Old Town area. And so I'm in support of this. I do have to point out that this is, I think, the exact same situation that we had not far from here on Coppell Road recently between a commercial and a residential use, where the residential users were okay with the wood fence, and we forced that developer to put up a masonry wall. So I do become concerned about consistency.
Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion. Councilmember Hill.
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing and approve item 10.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Mays. With conditions, I'm sorry.
With conditions, sorry.
Is that okay, Councilmember Mays? With with conditions. Any other comments? All in favor?
Long, Hinojosa, Smith, Mays, Roden, Yingling, Matthew Hill. None opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. And we will go from there. Congratulations, and we look forward to see dirt moving.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
You too. Okay. Item 11. Miss Mindy Hurley is here. Consider approval of 2 resolutions for 2 First Amendment to a tax abatement agreement by and between the City Council and North Point Hotel Group, LLC, and authorizing the mayor to sign. Hello, Miss Hurley.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Actually, the information I'm about to read pertains to item 11 and 12, so I know you need to vote on those separately, but I just wanted to let you know that I'll be presenting information that pertains to both of those.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. Next slide. So just as a little background information, North Point Hotel North Point Hotel Group is constructing 2 select service hotels right now. They are the Aloft Hotel and the Holiday Inn Express Hotel. And the Aloft Hotel is located at 1155 North Point Drive. It is 77,800 square feet. It has 140 guest rooms and 4,000 square feet of meeting space. And then Holiday Inn Express is located at 1125 North Point Drive. There's 69,600 square feet of space in that hotel with 125 guest rooms and 1,200 square feet of meeting space. Next slide. City Council did approve tax abatement agreements and civic center agreements for both of those hotels in November of 2018. And in those agreements, there was a defined completion of construction date set. And for both of those, COVID-19 has delayed their construction, so therefore they are not going to be able to meet those completion of construction dates. And that's why we're bringing forward the First Amendment to each of those agreements. And so the First Amendment to all 4 of those agreements basically sets a new completion of construction date. So for the Aloft Hotel the tax abatement agreement and Civic Center agreement, the new completion of construction date will be June 30th, 2021. And for Holiday Inn Express, the completion date and the tax abatement and the Civic Center agreement will now be June 30th of 2022. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
On the first one,
yes, ma'am.
When it has not started construction?
So there is they have moved dirt out there. There is some debate on whether if that is the start of construction or not. But they have moved dirt out there today.
I was gonna say I thought we went out there for a groundbreaking, and I remember it being very cold, and it wasn't this year.
Correct.
Okay, so it's not really COVID related.
They told me it's COVID has delayed their construction that will prevent them from meeting their construction time. Just as a side note, every one of our hotels has missed their completion of construction date. We have brought back first amendments to all of their agreements thus far.
Okay.
Mayor and council, there apparently is some legal issue between the property owner and the hotel developer, and there's a lawsuit pending, and they've taken the deposition of Ms. Hurley and Ms. Arnold, so I would appreciate if we not ask them questions about that issue. And start of construction is the issue that's being
there. You go.
Covenants or some contractual obligations from that date. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Good to know. Any other questions? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion. Councilmember Mays.
Sorry, I didn't realize you couldn't see my finger there.
It's like you're putting up a fist. Like, yeah.
Do we want to do 11 and 12 or just 11 at this time?
Just 11.
All right. I move to approve item number 11.
Wait, they're the exact same thing, aren't they?
Item 11 is the tax abatement agreements for both hotels, and item 12 is the Civic Center agreements for both hotels.
Okay, so two separate items. So let's start with the item 11, and you have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? By Councilmember Hinojosa Smith. All in favor?
Long, Hinojosa Smith, Mays, Roden, Yingling, Matthew Hill. None opposed. Motion carries.
Okay. And then item 12, consider approval of two resolutions for two first amendments to the Civic Center agreement by and between the City of Coppell and the North Point Hotel Group, and authorizing the mayor to sign. We've already had the discussion. Councilmember Long.
Yes, I move to approve agenda item 12.
Is there a second? Councilmember Matthew. All in favor?
Long, Hinojosa Smith, Mays, Roden, Matthew, Yingling, Hill. None opposed. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Item 13, consider approval of two resolutions approving for the City of Coppell's allocation of funds from the CARES Act for social services and local businesses, and authorizing the mayor to sign. And this will be a tag team?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
I will go first. Mayor and council, we've had multiple conversations about this, and this first portion of the discussion just really deals with the social services side. MetroCrest, as you know, we provided $85,000 to a few months ago. Their additional ask is for another $59,000, bringing their total ask to $244,000. Then we have a request from the Child Advocacy Center that we're working with Denton County on right now, but that total ask would be about $25,500. And then there's the YMCA, and we are currently working with Dallas County for the funding, what qualifies for funding on the social services related to the YMCA. So what we're asking for tonight basically is for the program to be approved for funding of social services up to the amount included in the resolution. And we will continue to work with Dallas County to get clarification on a couple of items. What will happen after tonight is we will then get that clarification, have the program from a city council standpoint be established, and then submit to Dallas County. And Dallas County every Wednesday basically reviews what programs cities are proposing and then lets those cities know if those programs fully qualify. So we still won't be distributing any dollars yet because we'll wait till on the social services until we get clarification from Dallas County and Denton County that the proposed uses do qualify for funding purposes. So that concludes the social services portion of the program that you're basically being asked to approve this evening. Now, Mindy will discuss the Business Assistance Program, which has met approval of Dallas County. So, Mindy, if you want to take it from there.
Sure, thank you. So this is the third time you're hearing this from me tonight, so I'm going to try to keep it from being boring. But I do want to go through all of the details just to make sure that we addressed all of your previous remarks and concerns and changes that you wanted to be seen. So next slide, please. So we have discussed this, and we are proposing, well, let me back up. On June 30th, we did present 3 potential options for grant programs, and you all authorized us to go ahead and move forward with 2 of those programs. And those were the Restaurant Assistance Grant Program and the Business Retrofit Grant Program. And so a little about the Restaurant Assistance Grant Program. Grants will be awarded based on occupancy load. Restaurants will be awarded $55 per allowable occupant. And to be eligible for the grant, the restaurant will need to meet the following criteria. The restaurant must be located within the city limits of Coppell and must be in current compliance with the City of Coppell Code of Ordinances. They must not be in any litigation with the City of Coppell or the county in which they are located. The restaurant must have a physical storefront in Coppell, and the restaurant must have endured a 25% or greater reduction in sales or business due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We have dedicated $660,000 to this grant program. So that was the first one that we submitted and did get approval from Dallas County on. The second grant program is the Business Retrofit Grant Program. Businesses that are retrofitting their physical or virtual space to meet public health and safety concerns will be reimbursed for expenditures up to $5,000. The list of items that are eligible for reimbursement include plexiglass barriers, cleaning supplies that are used to clean common contact surfaces, hand sanitizing stations, PPE supplies, cost to create an online purchasing system, cost to change to contactless faucets, upgrading a payment system and or upgrading sanitation systems, antimicrobial furniture, cubicle height extenders, desk dividers or privacy panels, quick flex walls, or any of the costs to install the plexiglass or protective barriers. So again, as we've mentioned in the past, our desire is that businesses that provide these items in Coppell will, the other businesses will purchase them from them. So we have put resources on our website that list all the businesses in Coppell that provide any of these reimbursable items. And then we'll continue to add to that list as we find out more. So we've made it available if we're unaware of a company that provides one of those, that we'll add them to the list if they make us aware of that. And again, all purchases will be reimbursed after the receipt is submitted. So they will have to spend the money and submit it as a reimbursement. We will not be providing any money up front. And again, to be eligible for the grant, the business must meet the following criteria. They must be located within the city limits of Coppell and must be in current compliance with the City of Coppell Code of Ordinances. The business must have a physical storefront in Coppell. They must not be in any litigation with the City of Coppell or the county in which they are located. And the business must be open to the public to conduct business. And for this grant program, we've dedicated $990,000. And as we mentioned, we did submit both of these grant programs to Dallas County, and we did receive approval last week. So we've got the applications for both of the grant programs currently up on our website. You can view information in the applications at www.coppelltx.gov/grants. And again, we'll have an application period each month, and we'll do that every month until all the funds have been dispersed or the programs have expired. And so again, we have those dates up on the website also. And the first grant application period will begin on July 22nd and will close on July 29th. So if you go to that website, you'll see that the application is not active today. It will not be activated until the 22nd. And as we stated before, businesses may qualify for both of the grant programs, but priority consideration will be given to those that have not received a previous grant. And we also put a disclaimer on there that we will not be distributing any funds until we receive the CARES Act funding from Dallas County. So we do have that disclaimer on there. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have about either of those programs.
Councilmember Yingling.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Hurley, did you let people know? You said that the businesses have been made aware of this, just so everybody knows that you've reached out to let them know that they're aware. In other words, they don't have to find out on their own.
We will be sending out the information tomorrow. We were waiting till after tonight to get the information out. So we'll be contacting all the businesses that we have contact for. So we have contact information for all the restaurants. So we'll be sending it to them directly. And then we'll be sending it to every other business we have. We'll be putting it out on social media, in the newspaper. We'll have a press release. We've asked the chamber to help us get the word out also. So we will start getting that word out tomorrow.
And approximately how many businesses will you be contacting?
Well, again, we don't have direct contact information for every single business.
Okay.
We think there are about 350 businesses with the criteria for the business retrofit grant. And then we have anywhere between 85 and 90 restaurants.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill.
Yes, Ms. Hurley, I wanted to ask you regarding the retrofitting grant. Are you going to include contactless soap dispensers and paper towel dispensers, or contactless hand dryers?
Mindy, I think it's all the contactless related.
Yes, pretty much anything that is converting to a contactless system, it will be considered eligible for reimbursement.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Thoughts? And then as we move through this program, and I know we've talked about this before, but as we move through the program, it is our goal to get this money out to our businesses and our community. So if there are needs for a little bit of shift, we can look at those as well, especially since Mike said it was going every Wednesday?
Every Wednesday, Dallas County does a review of the programs that cities are offering. So to your point, Mayor, let's just say, we're not necessarily anticipating fully that all 85 or 90 of the restaurants are going to apply for their funds. And this first round, people are applying for their retrofit dollars. We'll probably go for a couple of months on the retrofit, see where we stand, and then be able to go back to Dallas County and say, okay, now we have available funds that could be broadened in terms of their use. And so here's the ideas, and are those acceptable? And if they are, then we have the ability to move forward with expanding the program.
Great. This is a great start, though. Councilmember Yingling.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to move to approve agenda item number 13.
Is there a second? Councilmember Hill. All in favor?
Long, Hinojosa, Smith, Mays, Roden, Yingling, Matthew Hill. None opposed. Motion carries.
Okay, I'm getting harassed up here. Thank you very much, Mindy, for all your work on this. We appreciate you and looking forward to the updates.
Thank you all.
Item 14, City Manager's reports.
Mayor, just a couple of things this evening. One regarding COVID-19. As you recall, this past, I guess it was Thursday night, everything blends together now at our special meeting. You approved a resolution extending the emergency health declaration through the end of August. We'll continue to watch and see what the governor does. As you've noticed here lately, he's, interestingly enough, didn't want to give local control, and now it's all up to us. And so it's just been a fascinating dialogue to follow. From an operational standpoint, what we've told our staff is that, and let me the caveat in this: don't get stuck on this date. But September 8th. Right now, we're going through still using rotating work schedules, keeping 265, 255, the Justice Center only open by appointment, in which we have people making appointments to come up, so they're able to receive their full level of services. But with everything that's going on, with the spikes that are happening, the hospitalizations that are going on, we just felt it's best to continue to make it by appointment only. That way we're not inviting or facilitating any potential issues. Part of our organization, we have had some members of our staff that have contacted or contracted COVID-19. Interestingly enough, it's from away from work, not at work. So it's just kind of the way that things go. So we just ask everybody to continue to be careful out there. Regarding a couple of projects, as you know, the Art Center has been delayed as a result of COVID-19 and everything that's happening. And it looks like now that we may be able to get the CO in August. They are starting to install, I call them the fenestrations, the paneling, the flooring, the very furniture has been installed. That's happened. So progress is being made, but it's extremely frustrating knowing that we can't get this thing open, especially, bringing people inside. The other thing is that Freeport continues to move forward, and hopefully by the end of this month, all 4 lanes will be open. If they're not already, my understanding is they're not, but they should be open by the end of this month, the first part of August. So, Mayor, that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Any questions for the city manager? Okay. Item 15, mayor and council reports. The one thing that's coming up, our calendars have cleared, just like a lot of people's calendars have cleared. But the City Council will be holding a budget workshop on July 27th at 6 p.m. The budget workshop will be the final review of the operating budget. It will be the final review of the temporary numbers.
It'll be the certified estimates.
Certified estimates. Thank you for that correction. It'll be the final review using the certified estimates of the operating budget for the fiscal year 2020-2021. Please contact Casey Lay, who is the budget manager, at CLay or Clay, which always confused me, at coppelltx.gov or at 972-304-3690 for more information. The meeting will be virtual, and you can stream it live from either the city website or at the city website at www.coppelltx.gov. Did I say that right? It didn't sound right. I didn't. It was right? Okay. Any other announcements from the council? Our calendars are clear. What did she say? We just got notice that over 1,200 people early voted at Town Center for the Democratic Party runoff. And so we do not have today's numbers yet, but today is the last day. We did have people coming in yesterday trying to vote, but today was actually election day. So if you missed it, if you haven't already voted, your opportunity is gone, and that was at 7 p.m. this evening. So you can try again in November. That's right. So no public service announcements. There was no necessary action from executive session. So there being no further business before us, the time is 8:48, and we are adjourned. Thank you all for being here tonight. And for those of us who have to commute, it's not that far, but it's a whole lot farther than you guys have to go. So take care. Bye.